In this tutorial, we are going to be looking at straight line graphs, and specifically, we'll be looking to identify the slope and the y-intercept from straight line graph equations. Now, the equations that we're going to work with are all of this form here, right here, y equals mx plus c. So it would probably help right at the start to identify the different parts of this form of the equation, and then we can move on to making some kind of relationship between the equation itself and a real graph. So let's do just that. We'll look at the y first of all. Now the y represents a value on the y-axis. So here's the y-axis here, and this y represents a value along this y-axis that runs vertically. So you might be able to figure out from that that the x refers to the x-axis, and this value here refers to a number along the x-axis, so the horizontal axis. So that leaves two mysterious elements to this equation, and we've got m right here, and the m stands for the value of the slope. Now, another name for slope is the gradient. So gradient and slope have the same meaning. So the last part of this equation form is here with the letter c, and that stands for the y-intercept. And I'm going to explain that very, very shortly as well. Just one note, this c in some forms of the equation might also be listed as a b, so you might see this online as well. This equation, y equals mx plus c, can also be written as y equals mx plus b. It means the same thing. The y-intercept is this element right here, the b. So it can be written as either a b or as a c. Same thing. Now, I'm going to give you the actual equation for this particular straight line graph. And we'd write it like this. So y equals, it'll be negative 1 over 2 x plus 3. Now, you'll be asked to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Those are the two questions that you have to answer. So if you write down here slope and y-intercept, let's see if we can actually find the correct answers. Well, if we look up here, we see that m represents the slope or the gradient, and it is the value immediately preceding or before the x. So if I look down here, I can see that minus 1/2 or minus 1 over 2 is the value of m, because here is x right here. So the slope, in other words, becomes minus 1 over 2. Now the y-intercept, again, this letter y relates to the y-axis, and intercept means where the y-axis is crossed by the line. And I can see right here, here's the line, it crosses the y-intercept right there. So what is that point? It's positive 3. So I can write 3. When I look at the equation, the value immediately in front of the x is the slope or the gradient, and this term right here is where the graph crosses the y-axis. Now it can be a positive or a negative. In this case, it was a positive value. Okay, so that is the absolute basics of identifying the slope and the y-intercept from an equation. I hope you found that relatively straightforward to understand, and good luck.